Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Walters is the best sports bar in Navy Yard, located just across the street from Nationals Park. Also a great place to check out if you're headed to Audi Field.
Make sure to check out their self-pour beer wall and unlimited TVs.
Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring podcasts on the Blue Wire Network. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, then you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Wherever you are across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/bluewire to learn more and find a center near you. That's unified, UNIFYD, healing.com/bluewire. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE System.
Senzel in at third. Edge of the grass, the pitch, he shows bunt, the ball to the backstop. Runner breaks to the plate, Rosario. Willis throws home and hits the runner, and it's 3-0 San Diego.
Rainey comes set. And the pitch swung on in high and deep to left, way back. That ball is gone. Goodbye. The Padres have hit their second grand slam in as many days. And what a day for Kyle Higashioka. And he has driven in 6 runs in this game here this afternoon. It's now San Diego 8 and Washington 0. Here is Nick Senzel against the lefty Morejon. First pitch swung on, ground ball to short. Could be 2. Kim flips it to Cronenworth. The throw to first to Solano. And it's a double play. The game and the series over just like that.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Thursday, June 27th, 2024. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark Zuckerman is off for this installment of the podcast, but I'm joined by the mastermind of this podcast, Tim Shovers, though not even Tim could mastermind a win for the Nationals in their big 3-game series at the San Diego Padres. Wednesday, an 8-5 loss at the Padres, completing a 3-game sweep. This game off the Nats' 9-7 loss at the Padres late night on Tuesday night in a game in which the Nats blew a 4-2 fifth-inning lead and allowed 7 runs over the 5th and 6th innings. That also was the game in which we had the benches and bullpens emptying incident in the bottom of the first. And that game happened off what went down late night on Monday night, game 1 of this series. The Nats' 7-6, 10-inning loss at the Padres in a game in which the Nats did overcome a 3-0 third-inning deficit, but also blew a 6-3 10th-inning lead. The Nats for this regular season now 38-42. Tim, this was a big series. This ended up being a wild series. This ended up being a contentious series. But ultimately, this ended up being a really bad series for the Nats.
Yeah, this is just a half a step back, if you will. This is the first big series the Nats have had at this juncture of the season, and to get swept is a disappointment. It all sort of started Monday when they blew the lead, and you wonder how different this series would have been if they had held on to that 6-3 lead in 10 innings on Monday night. You know, we're going to get to it, but obviously DJ Herz, tough start today, and it does make you think if he is, worthy of currently being on a major league rotation. And so not only are there a few losses, but there's some real questions. And, tough series this week in San Diego for sure.
Well, the DJ Herz decision will not be coming, at least in the immediate future, as we did get a Josiah Gray update on Wednesday. And the update, perhaps surprising, we'll get to that in a bit. The Nats on Thursday have an off day, what is their final scheduled off day until the All-Star break. So the Nats from Friday, June 28th through Sunday, July 14th have 17 games in 17 days, and that'll conclude a stretch of 26 games in 27 days. We haven't talked about this much, but the Nats are currently in the midst of quite the run. 26 games in 27 days. You wonder if fatigue is at all starting to settle in. Although, of course, every major league team has to deal with this. So it's not like a run like this is exclusive to the Nats. But it is worth pointing out the team is in the midst of a pretty rough stretch here. And like we said, this series ended up being rough. Now, what was interesting is this. So the Nats over the first 2 games of this series actually did do well offensively. The Nats in this game on Wednesday did not do well offensively until the 9th inning. The Nats in this game, 5 runs, 5 hits, which were 2 doubles and 3 singles, 3 walks, 3 for 4 with runners in scoring position. All 5 of the Nats runs, 4 of the Nats 5 hits, and 1 of the Nats 3 walks came in the top of the 9th, as the Nats did make a blowout, somewhat interesting, trimmed an 8-0 deficit to 8-5. Did you at any point in that top of the 9th say to yourself, the Nats just might do this? They just might pull off a miracle comeback win?
What I said was to myself, the boys are battling because the tying run was on deck. And then I was also thinking, man, I don't at all think they're going to come back and tie this game. Al must be getting really aggravated at how long this top of the 9th inning is taking. That was honestly the dominant thought in my head.
Well, I've noted this before. The Nats, during their rebuild, have had this habit of, in blowout losses, scoring meaningless runs in 9th innings. The Nats have been doing this for years. That's how I was feeling about this 9th inning. But to me, when you put up a 5 spot in the top of the 9th, that does go beyond meaningless runs. Like, again, the game actually became kind of sort of interesting in that top of the 9th inning. So I do salute the Nats for doing that in that 9th inning. The Nats did what they did despite 2 of the team's top 3 batters in the lineup, C.J. Abrams and Jesse Winker, struggling in this game. Abrams as the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 0 for 3 with a strikeout, and he committed a fielding error. Jesse Winker as the Nats starting left fielder and number 3 batter, 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. But the Nats' number 2 batter in the lineup, right fielder Lane Thomas, he had yet another productive game. Lane 1 for 2 with a 2-run double and 2 walks. He did get thrown out in an attempted steal of second base because this would not be an official Nats game if somebody didn't make some kind of an out on the base pass. But Thomas in the top of the first, a 1-out walk, despite having been down to the count at 1.02. He then was thrown out in an attempted steal of second base for the 3rd out. But Thomas in the top of the 4th, a 1-out walk, and Thomas in that Nats 5-run 9th, a 2-run double to the left field corner to cut the Nats deficit to 8-2. Lane Thomas, for this month of June, on base percentage 340, slugging percentage 564. He has been a force since coming off the injured list. And, you know, Tim, to me, the Lane Thomas trade conversation is becoming very interesting. He was not having a good season prior to getting hurt. He, since coming off the IL, has been tremendous. You look at Lane Thomas, age 28 season, under team control through just next season. We know that he drew trade interest last season, so presumably there will be a market / is already a market for him this season. We know that the Nats have multiple high-level outfield prospects in the minors, namely James Wood and Dylan Cruz and Robert Hassel III. So to me, the Nats absolutely should be open to trading Thomas prior to the trade deadline. Now, we are still more than a month away from the deadline, so things certainly can change. The deadline is on Tuesday, July 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern. But the point would be this. The way that Thomas is playing right now, you got to think that that is piquing some teams' interest.
Absolutely. This would be a very indicative decision from the Nats front office as to where they think the team is and where this is headed and what timelines are. Because if they're in this position at the trade deadline, which is under 500, but still in reach of the wild card, that's a very tricky spot that they're in right now. And when you have an asset like Lane Thomas, you do obviously have to weigh a lot of things. Right now, if you ask me, my gut, without seeing where we're at, I think they do trade Lane Thomas for the reasons you mentioned. He is a very enticing player on the open market to a team that thinks that they're maybe a bat or so away. Lane Thomas can fix a lot of problems for you, and he doesn't have to hit second on, some other teams. He could hit lower in the lineup very easily and fill in your 6 or 7 spot very well. So yeah, this subplot is one of the things that really is getting interesting. And I do have to give you props, by the way, Al. I like your quick line about it wouldn't be a Nats game unless someone got out on the bases, just to continue this season-long thing of kvetching about it.
It's amazing how that streak has continued. But yeah, the Nats are a fascinating team regarding the trade deadline because they are a rebuilding team that is part of this massively jumbled wild card mess in the National League. The Nats also are a very interesting team because you look at the potential trade chips, Lane Thomas, Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey, three of the bigger ones, right? Each guy is under team control through just next season. Each guy is scheduled to be a free agent after next season. So if you're not willing to trade him now, if you don't trade him now, you're saying, okay, we're either going to trade him come next year's deadline when the value presumably would be lessened because there's one less season of team control, or you're saying we're going to make a decision on the guy contractually, you know? So yeah, you're kind of like, all right, you're going to have to decide on these guys. And if you're going to decide to trade them, then it would seem better to trade them now as opposed to next season, especially with Thomas doing so well right now and Finnegan and Harvey in the midst of really good seasons. I know there have been some speed bumps lately. So a lot to be thinking about with the Nats regarding the trade deadline. But again, the deadline is more than a month away. A lot can change between now and July 30th. Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation, which has another great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. Window Nation is extending its semi-annual sale, 50% off all window styles, plus 0% interest for 5 years, and an additional bonus if you schedule an appointment between now and the end of this month. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. Window Nation windows are the best. Add to the look, feel, and value of your home. Every Window Nation window undergoes a 50-point inspection before the window leaves the Window Nation factory. And know that Window Nation's vinyl windows can do everything that wood or composite windows can do, and at a fraction of the cost of wood and composite windows. Take advantage of this offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. 50% off all window styles plus 0% interest for 5 years, and an additional bonus if you schedule an appointment between now and the end of this month. 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
And now the pitch. Swinging a line shot. That's going to be extra bases into the right field corner. Rounding third, coming home is Thomas. Heading for third is Meneses. They're going to wave him home, and there'll be no throw. He slides in, but the ball was held by the second baseman Cronenworth along the right field line. Into second with a double and 2 runs batted in is Luis Garcia Jr. And the Nationals have plated 4 runs here in the top of the 9th inning with only 1 out. It's now San Diego 8 and Washington 4.
So Lane Thomas had a good offensive game in this game, also getting big hits for the Nats in the 5-run ninth on Wednesday. Luis Garcia Jr. and Harold Ramirez. Garcia as the Nats starting second baseman and number 5 batter, 1 for 4 with a 2-run double. He and the Nats 5-run ninth had a 1-out 2-run double to right field to cut the Nats deficit to 8-4. And Ramirez got his first start for the Nats at the major league level. He was the Nats starting designated hitter and number 6 batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Ramirez in the Nats 5-run ninth had a 1-out first pitch, opposite field RBI single through the right side of the infield to cut the Nats deficit to 8-5. The Nats really took it to the Padres bullpen in that 9th inning, and it so stood out in contrast to what went down with the Nats offensively over the first 8 innings. The Nats over the first 8 innings of this game did nothing offensively. Again, 1 hit through the 8 innings, 2 walks through the first 8 innings. The Padres starting pitcher, Dylan Cease, 7 scoreless innings, 9 strikeouts. It is amazing when you get to a team's bullpen, especially the, shall we say, bottom of the totem pole of that bullpen. The entire complexion of a game offensively for you can change. The Nats were stymied by Dylan Cease. The Nats in that 9th inning looked like a totally different team offensively.
Yeah, if you have a friend who's a Padres fan and you want to impress them in conversation, mention Tom Cosgrove, because apparently he's at the bottom end of the San Diego Padres bullpen. He really struggled. His ERA now after today's outing puts him at 11.66. So if we're wondering the main reason why the Nats were able to put up 5 runs in the 9th inning, I begin the conversation with him right there. And yeah, it does seem like you talk about for years that this is a theme where the Nats have sort of had these 9th innings. It's clear that a lot of managers feel comfortable using the end of their bullpen when they're facing the Washington Nationals.
Well, it was a blowout game, and what was hysterical about this was that Mike Schilt, the Padres manager, ended up warming his closer up during that ninth inning. Didn't bring him into the game, but this was a game that was 8-0 going into that ninth inning, and the Padres got to the point to where the closer had to be warming up. So a moral victory, I guess, to a degree for the Nats, but still, lost the game, lost the series 3-0. The Nats starting pitcher for this 8-5 loss at the Padres on Wednesday, DJ Herz. He lasted for just 3 1/3 innings. Herz allowed 4 runs. He gave up 6 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks and a run-scoring wild pitch. He recorded just 1 strikeout. He threw 66 pitches, just 39 strikes versus 27 balls. Herz in the bottom of the second allowed 2 runs. He gave up a 1-out single by Jackson Merrill to center field and gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Kyle Higashioka. Get used to hearing that name, to left field for a 2-0 Padres lead. Herz in this inning also issued a 2-out, 5-pitch walk of Bryce Johnson. Herz in the bottom of the fourth allowed 2 runs. He gave up a leadoff first pitch single by Eggy Rosario off the left center field warning track. Herz gave up an opposite field single by Kyle Higashioka to right field, despite having had him down to the count at 1.12. Herz issued a run-scoring wild pitch for a 3-0 Padres lead. Herz gave up a 1-out RBI single by Jurickson Profar, a popular name in this series, up the middle for a 4-0 Padres lead. And that was it. Nats manager Davey Martinez then pulled Herz from the game. We have almost been spoiled by Nats starting pitching. This was a common sight in recent seasons. This is a supremely rare sight this season, a Nats starting pitcher getting yanked in a 4th inning. And yet we had that in this game with DJ Herz.
Yeah, I'm going to read off the strikeout totals for DJ Herz so far in his 5 starts. 3, 5, 13, 5, and 1. I'm now going to ask you if you can guess which of the outings he faced the Miami Marlins. DJ Herz just looks and feels right now like a minor league pitcher filling in. As much as I'd like to say otherwise, we've seen flashes. I think he could be someone that belongs up here, but right now, I did not see a major league pitcher on the mound today.
It was on June 4th that the Nats announced that they had recalled Herz from AAA Rochester. That was, as you may recall, the corresponding roster move to the Nats placing starting pitcher Trevor Williams on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to June 1st with a right flexor muscle strain. Herz, since being promoted to the majors, 5 starts, ERA of 5.48, whip of 150. Outside of the great outing against the Miami Marlins at Nationals Park on June 15th, a 4-0 Nats win, Herz in that game was outstanding, right? 6 scoreless innings, 13 strikeouts versus no walks. Outside of that outing, he really hasn't done too well. And it's funny because after that outing, in the immediate aftermath of that outing, the sentiment was, well, DJ Herz is here to stay. Or at the very least, DJ Herz has bought himself some time at the major league level. And now I feel like the common sentiment is, yeah, DJ Herz is probably on his way out once Josiah Gray is back. Now, speaking of Josiah Gray, it turns out that his minor league rehab assignment is continuing for at least a bit longer. Gray has been on the 15-day injured list since April 9th, retroactive to April 6th, with a right elbow / right forearm flexor strain. He on Tuesday evening made what we thought might be the final start of his minor league rehab assignment, a 3-1 win for the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, over the Indianapolis Indians, 1 run in 6 innings. But it turns out that Gray's minor league rehab assignment isn't ending just yet. Davey Martinez told reporters after the loss on Wednesday that Gray will make at least 1 more start in his minor league rehab assignment, perhaps even 2 more starts in his minor league rehab assignment. This has become like the never-ending minor league rehab assignment. We thought 2 starts ago might have been the last outing. Then he has to start on Tuesday evening. I think most people felt pretty sure that that probably was the final outing. Now, not only might he make another outing, he might make 2 more outings. This really is something. Look, the Nats know things that we don't know. So I know that they're not purposely keeping him in the minors without purpose. There probably is something that they're looking for, something that they're wanting to see. But it's just funny to me. You didn't hear from anyone who thought that this minor league rehab assignment was going to continue on for multiple outings. And yet here we are. It looks like it may be the case. It still may be a week plus until we see Josiah Gray. And so you do wonder, might it be post All-Star break until we see Josiah Gray back in the major league rotation?
This morning when you and I convened for a different episode, I mentioned 2.5 months, and I realized that no, it's going to be 3 months because April 9th is when he went on there. So July 9th seems to be, if things are on time right now, it could be even over 3 months. My guess as to this, or at least my hope in terms of Gray, is that the Nats just want to see how he responds over a few days in between starts before they call him up for good, and that they want to see how he responds after Tuesday, then this weekend, and then see how he is on Monday, and then call him up while they got that busy stretch before the All-Star break, because otherwise I can't think of a real explanation.
Well, Josiah Gray, hopefully he's back before your newborn daughter has her bat mitzvah, but it really is something how this has taken so long. Now, again, and I keep saying this because I do mean this, I don't blame the Nats for being conservative with Gray. You absolutely should be careful and cautious with a young pitcher coming off an injury that can be a precursor to needing Tommy John surgery. Again, right elbow / right forearm flexor strain. It's just that we're all anxious and wanting to see Josiah Gray back. We keep feeling like he's about to be back, and the absence keeps being extended for a bit longer. But eventually he will be back, and eventually, hopefully, we do get our wish of the Nats rotation being comprised entirely of young, promising, up-and-coming starting pitchers. But we're not quite there yet.
Hi Nats fans, this is Tim Newmark, DC area composer, longtime Nationals fan, and proud composer of the Nats Chat podcast theme song. If you're enjoying the music and would like to hear more, check out timnewmark.com/streaming or just search for Tim Newmark wherever you listen to music. To find the rest of the song you're hearing now, search for the title Double in the Sun. Go Nats!
Pitch swung on, ground ball right side. It's through into right field. It's a base hit. To second, making the turn and stopping there is Jacob Young. The Nationals will call for the baseball. Nasim Nunez finally has his first major league hit.
The Nats bullpen in this 8-5 loss at the Padres on Wednesday. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings. The first 2 Nats relievers in this game did well. The third Nats reliever in this game did not do well. Jacob Barnes was great. He tossed 2 2/3 perfect innings. Jordan Weems was really good. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th. But then we had Tanner Rainey, and this was a real bummer. Tanner Rainey had been a resurgent Tanner Rainey in recent weeks. Tanner Rainey, off his good outing in Game 2 of this series, had tossed 8 scoreless innings over his last 7 appearances. But Tanner Rainey on Wednesday struggled big time. Bottom of the 8th, he allowed 4 runs. He gave up a 2-out grand slam by Kyle Higashioka, there's that name again, to left field for an 8-0 Padres lead. And it wasn't just the grand slam. Rainey in this inning gave up the grand slam, a single, a bunt single, and issued 2 walks. He did also record 2 strikeouts, but he threw 32 pitches, a mere 17 strikes versus 15 balls. Just when we thought that Tanner Rainey was getting back on track, just when we thought that Tanner Rainey was perhaps regaining the trust of Davey Martinez, he has an outing like this. I felt bad for him watching this because this puts him right back down at the bottom of the Nats bullpen hierarchy.
I was glad to see him get that spot because now Davey was sort of a safe space to test if Rainey could go back-to-back days, because unlikely at the time that they were going to score 4 runs against the 8 bullpen for the Padres, I doubt Mr. Cosgrove gets in the game if it's 4-0 instead of 8-0 in the top of the 9th. I think at this point, I don't want to overreact too much from the standpoint. I mean, obviously the Tanner Rainey stock is low, but hopefully he can still be decent after being rested. It's just the back-to-back he might be very, very far away from.
Yeah, and perhaps that was it. But if you have a reliever who you can never pitch in back-to-back games on back-to-back days, that's a tough spot to be in. Rainey now, this regular season, has given up 5 home runs in just 22 innings. For comparison's sake, Mackenzie Gore in this regular season has allowed just 7 home runs in 85 innings. Rainey, 5 home runs allowed, 22 innings. Gore, 7 home runs allowed, 85 innings. So not a good outing for Rainey and not a good day for the Nats, this 8-5 loss. Thankfully, mercifully, no game for the Nats on Thursday. Next up for them, a 3-game series at the Tampa Bay Rays. Game 1 Friday evening at 6:50. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 4:10. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 1:40. Patrick Corbin will be the Nats starting pitcher. The Rays are not having a particularly good season, so this very much is a winnable series for the Nats. And, it's a funny deal. You don't feel good about the team coming out of a series like this one, but bigger picture, the Nats lately still have been overall playing well. And, to the point of what does this series say? What does this series mean? The answer is nothing. Again, look at the National League wildcard standings, a jumbled mess. There is going to be so much that transpires between now and September in terms of who's doing well, who isn't doing well. What we do know, what I think we can say is this: that jumbled mess that is the National League wildcard picture, there will be risers and there will be fallers, right? They're not all going to stay clustered together like this. There will be at least some separation between now and September. And it's so hard to say whether the Nats will be a riser or a faller. They could be either, right? They could be a riser if the pitching continues to do well and if James Wood and eventually Dylan Cruz get summoned to the majors and help this offense finally become at least decent. But the Nats, of course, could be a faller. If the pitching falters, then all bets are off about this Nats season. So we don't know. We can't know. Obviously, injuries are always a factor in something like this. But I would not take this series, again, a rough series, as any kind of a tell of where the Nats are, where the season is going. There's a lot of baseball left here, and things are so tight with that National League wildcard scenario to where so much can change from week to week, let alone from month to month.
I'm with you on that. And to that point, next week, we're very close to we're basically 3 games away to some Nats fans' favorite homestand of the year, which is the July 4th homestand. That's a big deal for a lot of fans, and I would love if the Nats felt like they were in contention right around, fireworks and July 4th. So they're going to go to Tampa, 4 games under 500. If they get swept, 7 games below 500, that feels a lot different than 1 or 2. So a series win puts them 3 games below 500, entering that holiday homestand. And so I hope that they don't come in limping after, a terrible end to the road trip, having lost 6 in a row and back-to-back sweeps, let's say.
It is an 8-game, 2-series homestand, July 1st through the 8th, a 4-game series against the New York Mets, and then a 4-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals. After that comes a 6-game road trip to conclude the pre-All-Star break portion of the season. 3 games at the Mets, 3 games at the Milwaukee Brewers. The thinking has been that if James Wood gets promoted to the majors before the All-Star break, and I'm not expecting that, but of course it could happen, and if that was to happen, that would happen during that homestand, July 1st through the 8th, 4 games against the Mets, 4 games against the Cardinals. Would not make a ton of business sense to promote Woods to the majors during a 3-game series at the Tampa Bay Rays, a series for which there will be dozens in attendance. Although I would also say you really shouldn't let business operations dictate baseball operations. So, if you do think that Wood is ready for the majors, you shouldn't let where you're playing impact that. But we know in reality, stuff like that probably does at least enter into the thinking. Maybe doesn't dictate the decision-making, but certainly can enter into the thinking. So yeah, that is a significant homestand for multiple reasons, including, like you just said, it's the popular July 4th homestand. And we'll just see with this Nats team. The pitching has led the way. We get that. The pitching in this series was not great. We understand that, but this was just one series. It's a funny deal with the Padres, too. They have a certain juju at Petco Park. I know the Padres have not had a great season, but that whole slam Diego thing, that thing where, them hitting all these grand slams over these last few seasons, we saw that obviously with a grand slam on Wednesday, but there does seem to be something about the Padres at home, and the Nats, unfortunately, got victimized in that regard. You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We always love hearing from you. We have a website that you can check out as well, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Tim Shobers, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
brace yourself for something fuel-nominal. Unleaded 88 is the clear fuel choice. It's cheaper, cleaner, and greener. And it's grown by Iowa corn farmers. Now that's totally worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88.